Greetings, welcome back to Black Bear News, where everything is connected. And we are talking about climate change news of the day. Greetings, we got early chatters on Rockfin. We already got 12 watching on Rockfin, and that's awesome. Good to see you. And I already have a super tip or super ray. I got a tip on Rockfin from Raza. Thank you, Raza. And good to see you guys. 13 watching on Rockfin. Let's get more. We've got many chatters on YouTube. Welcome, guys. Scott Andrews says it's 12 Fahrenheit where you are. Okay. 8 below in Michigan. Yikes. Rich Diana. Yeah. I just saw a friend who lives in Ohio. Apparently it's hard to find salt, rock salt in Ohio to put on your driveway or whatever. And he got like a line on a bunch of salt. So he's been driving all night delivering salt to people and making a lot of money, I guess, doing that. That's one way to do it, I guess. Anyways, good to see y'all. um, 5 degrees in the Texas Panhandle, says the violent hippie. Nice. Nice. Excuse me. Yeah. Snake 1974, Kevin Shanholzer, Osama number 5, Laura Neufeld, Jacob Gordon, Ryan Gorman, Bill Gabriel, Raza are all on Urban Hermit. Scott Andrews, everybody on Rockfin. So yeah, let's get into some stuff. Kind of weird. Oh, I hate when they do this to me. I hate it. Oh, I hate it. Anyways, somewhere in here is the thing that I really wanted to get to. Let's see. Or maybe I did it to myself. I did it to myself. Never underestimate the power of user error. Never underestimate. So this is, I saw this and I was like, I don't know, it pissed me off. It really kind of made me upset. And maybe it shouldn't have made me upset. But yesterday when we were talking about what's going on in Texas, or what has been happening with the polar vortex, and Poppy Davis said the windmills were freezing up. And, I took that to be like, yeah, that was a thing. Windmills were freezing up. And so that was contributing to some of the power outages. I didn't assume that was the only reason that there were power outages. Obviously, your whole energy grid is going to be affected by very cold weather, right? So, that's kind of just, I think, a given. But I saw this today and I was like, I was a little frustrated with this. Dr. Genevieve Gunther says, oh my God, I just overheard one of my kids' teachers saying that the power's down in Texas because their grid has so much wind. And oh my God, I jumped into the Zoom to say that was false and the gas plants are frozen too. Okay, so I think she was trying to, she said, oh my God, I couldn't resist, but my kid is never going to forgive me. I think she was trying to say that she was pushing back on On the reason for the outages being wind power or windmills. I get it. It's cool. But she says it was false. I mean, so I was like, is it false or is it not? And I Googled it, and there were actually quite a few articles on this. Frozen wind turbines contribute to rolling power blackouts across Texas. Contribute. So it's not because of the frozen wind turbines that they were out of power. They were contributing it. Some of the warmest places in Texas where rolling power outages are occurring across the chilly state are inside cars and trucks parked in driveways of a home without electricity. Rolling power blackouts were ordered across Texas on Monday as a winter storm and frigid temperatures gripped the state and knocked out service to more than 3.8 million customers. The rotating outages can continue until the state's weather emergency ends, according to the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, or ERCOT, a major grid operator that controls about 90% of the state's electric load. Governor Greg Abbott said in a Twitter post that the state's power grid has not been compromised. Okay. Frozen wind turbines and limited gas supplies have hampered the ability to generate enough power, according to a statement from ERCOT. This is a statement from ERCOT. Frozen wind turbines and limited gas supplies have hampered the ability to generate enough power. So they're in the mix. And they are a cause of them not being able to generate enough power. Right? One of the causes is gas supplies. One of the causes is frozen wind turbines. Let me see. Encore, an energy company serving parts of North Texas, including Dallas, tweeted Monday that the state's power system is currently facing an unprecedented shortfall of electric generation, and that ERCOT has requested Encore and utilities across Texas to implement controlled power outages to reduce high demand and protect the integrity of the electric grid. I was looking at, there was something else in here about the fact that it is also hampering, it's freezing. It's hampering all of the generation of electricity, fossil fuel and electric. Hold on one second. Anyways, that part that I was looking for, I cannot find it. But so this is a statement from the actual energy company. This is an article from CNN. It's not Fox News. It's not, this isn't a lie. This isn't, somebody didn't make this up. So the problem I have with her tweet is that she's saying, it's false. It's not false. She's saying it's not false. Yes, the gas plants are frozen too. I said it's not false. The plants are frozen. Gas plants are frozen too, but this is an actual news story. No one's making it up. And all these people are like, oh no, it's not, not a thing. It's, this other guy tweets out this 24 tweet response saying that the wind turbines are operating at 100%. So this is, this is called lefty liberal disinformation. This is called blue MAGA, basically. It's like, well, saying that the wind it's down because the wind generators are frozen is false. It's not false. It's real. The energy companies said it themselves. That's part of the problem. There are multiple problems, but I mean, She just was like, I got them. Okay. I mean, I don't know. I'm not really sure about, maybe I'm taking the context of this wrong. But the thing is that people are just like, oh my God, yeah, good for you, doctor. Yeah, it's not the wind turbines at all. Energy, renewable energy is great and perfect. And this guy is tweeting out that, oh, they're operating at 100%. No, they're not. No, they're not. Didn't even have time to respond to this fool. Oh my God! But the issue is that people, you gotta defend renewable electricity or defend, the green wave, if you will, even if you're, even against reality, like, and it's just like with everything else, any other of the messaging that's taking place around, like, liberal ideas, as well as, conservatives do exactly the same thing, right? They just throw out nonsense that doesn't make any sense or is just not in touch with reality in order to support their side. And fucking liberals do that too. It's just so ridiculous. So, I mean, whatever. I had to push back against that because it's kind of like Catherine Hayhoe saying that, the Dallas airport is carbon neutral. No, if you take the planes away from the airport, that where the planes land and take off, if you took all the planes out of the equation, then it might be carbon neutral. But with planes, there's nothing carbon neutral about any airport, anywhere on the planet. There's nothing carbon neutral about an airport. But her saying like bullshit like that, I mean, that's just, come on now. Come on now. We got to live in reality, and we have to, tell the truth, even if it's, uncomfortable, or even if it's, maybe doesn't support our, fully. I understand there's a whole culture war thing going on, and there's a whole information war. Everybody thinks that the windmills freezing or something that, Fox News and conservatives are going to say, look, see, your renewable energy isn't working. Well, nothing's working, but renewable energy isn't working either. So that's the problem, is that it's not, you have one energy source that's super polluting and that's not working. It's not great for the planet. And then you have another energy source that is, only mildly, somewhat less polluting, but on the surface doesn't burn fossil fuels. And, on the surface doesn't burn fossil fuels, but it burns fossil fuels underneath the surface. Everything around it is, dependent on fossil fuels. But we got to support this thing, even if we're lying about it. It's just, just stop. Just stop. Black Bear Links, what's going on? Everyone say hello to Black Bear Links. And, I get it. I get that you want to, like, counter what could be seen as some kind of narrative by the right, but I read that article from CNN. Is CNN a right-wing organization? No, it's not. Is CNN right-wing propaganda? Well, sometimes it is. Sometimes it is. But, mainly you would say that liberals and Democrats are people that look at CNN and go, this is something I can trust. That's from them, from CNN, says wind turbines are creating an issue. ERCOT, the actual energy company, is saying it's an issue. So you're gonna refute the energy company itself that's saying this is an issue, and CNN, and wrap it all up in a big bow and say, like, well, it's, Fox News disinformation. No, it's not. Genevieve Gunther. Anyways, maybe she, actually, there's probably less issue with her original tweet. Maybe the context is not, her context is not the problem, but the way that everybody else took it was like, yeah, you tell them. CNN is an abomination, I agree. Bodo Lamppost expressed the culture war in raw numbers. It's just, Clinton News Network, indeed. Yeah, it just what's more real than anything is I can't remember who tweeted out yesterday, but somebody's saying that, like, look, this is extreme weather. When extreme weather hits places that aren't used to extreme weather, what happens? A lot of damage. People die. Animals die. The environment, is negatively impacted. All those things happen. And so climate change is creating a situation where extreme weather is extreme weather, doing extreme weather things, Yeah, so, I don't. I just was, I just had to push back and say, like, hey, don't, this is a thing. Read this article, CNN, tweeted this out. You dork. But, people really took issue with me pushing back on that. But, I don't care. Just reality. Please operate in reality. Whatever you do. The problem is that when scientists, doctors, don't operate in reality, then you get people saying, I don't believe science anymore. Why aren't people taking this vaccine? Why don't people believe in this coronavirus? Why don't people believe in, climate change? Why? Because you guys say ridiculous nonsense, and then you're like, I'm a doctor. Yeah, Dr. Stupid. You are Dr. Stupid. So nobody gives a shit. Nobody gives two flying fucks, about your degree or your doctor, whatever. If you say false things and say stupid things and say things that are not connected to reality, people are going to be like, yeah, okay, thanks a lot, doctor. Whatever. Just come on, do better. You got to do better. You got to do better than that. But then, but then you have, like, really wealthy philanthropists, billionaires, who everybody's supposed to look up to because they're really wealthy. So, they're really wealthy for a reason because they earned it, or they're really smart, or they're really good people, or they're better people than you. They're better than you. Interestingly, Bill Gates just published a book. Maybe I don't know if they're going to say the title in this article. This is kind of a pushback article. Hold on, maybe we can find. Well, I want to read this article in The Nation because it seems to sum up some good things. So anyways, he published this book, How to Avoid a Climate Disaster. To avoid a climate disaster, we need to eliminate emissions from the ways we create electricity, grow food, make things move around, and heat and cool our buildings. It won't be easy, but I believe we can do it. This book is about what it will take. Okay, thanks, Bill Gates. So Bill Gates, he's on it. My new climate book is finally here. Everything you need to know about avoiding the worst climate outcomes by Bill Gates. Well, hold on. Let's give this a little bit of airtime. When I worked at Microsoft, it was always a thrill to see products we've been working on for years finally get released to the public. I'm feeling the same sense of anticipation today. My new book on climate change is available now online and in bookstores. What we need now is a plan that turns all this momentum, the momentum of actually realizing that, we're in the middle of a climate disaster. Excuse me. Turn this momentum into practical steps to achieve our big goals. That's how how to avoid a climate disaster is a plan for eliminating greenhouse gas emissions. I kept the jargon to a minimum because I wanted the book to be accessible to everyone who cares about this issue. I didn't assume that readers know anything about energy or climate change, though if you do, I mean, I'm going to say, it would be worth maybe reading this book. There might be some good ideas in here. Look, I'm not going to just slam it just because it's Bill Gates. There might be I haven't read the book, so I can't review it for you. I didn't assume that readers know anything about energy or climate change, though if you do, I hope it will deepen your understanding of this incredibly complex topic. Excuse me. I also included ways in which everyone can contribute, whether you're a political leader, an entrepreneur, an inventor, a voter, or an individual who wants to know how you can help. Here we go. Within a few years, I had become convinced of three things. One, to avoid a climate disaster, we have to get to zero greenhouse gas emissions. Two, we need to deploy the tools we already have, like solar and wind, faster and smarter. Okay. and so that's, number two. Already at number two, there's a lot of iffy. It's a very deep subject. That's, people shouldn't just accept on face value. Of course, that's what we have to do. Number three, and we need to create and roll out breakthrough technologies that can take us the rest of the way. So this sounds to me like a very techno-utopian kind of path, right? He's like, we need technology, and then we need more technology. He's not talking about we need to stop having a consumer-based society or consumer-based capitalist system. He's not talking about lowering people's, energy footprint or carbon footprint. He's not talking about people living off the land, giving up all their possessions, or most of their 95% of their possessions if you live in the first world. None of those things are being talked about. He's not talking. I didn't see in this list, I didn't see regenerative agriculture. I didn't see lowering our reliance on technologies and more technologies, more energy. This is funny. The bad news, getting to zero will be really hard. Especially when it's going to take a lot of fossil fuels to build those solar panels and mine the minerals for the solar panels and make the windmills and ship the windmills and construct the windmills and erect the windmills and blah, 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 blah. And build the cars and build the trains and build the hydroelectric dams and build all the things. It's going to take a lot of fossil fuels in order to do that. How do we if we ramp up an entirely new age of infrastructure building, how do we get to net zero in like 10 years? How do we lower our emissions while we're making all these things that require emissions to make and install? How are we lowering emissions? Anyways, so let's get into this article from The Nation really quick. Before we do that, hold on one second. Just going to check in on the people. WRW is asking me, how many humans do you believe this planet can support? I don't know. I mean, there's already lots of numbers out there that people think are the real numbers, 1 billion or 500 million or 500 million. I don't know. I think it should be, I think it would be less than we have now. So that's all. less than we have now. I think going in the other direction is probably the way to go, right? As far as ramping up consumerism and industrialization and making things and emitting carbon and making more things and everybody having things and everybody chewing up resources of the planet. The more people we have, the more people we're doing that. So let's go in the other direction. That's all I can tell you. That's all I can tell you. You know, I'm not the person with the numbers about how many people the planet can support. I don't know the numbers, but I know that it's less than 8 billion. What if we were all, growing our own food, not using fossil fuels to grow our own food? If everybody on the planet was living agriculturally, let's say in more of an Amish lifestyle, if everybody on the planet was doing that, how many people do you think this planet could support? I don't know. Regan Parrington is asking me, when do you think we will experience our first Blue Ocean event? Chat? Again, I don't know. Anytime between today and 2030. Any day between now and 2030. TCR Galaxy, I love how humans will discuss how many humans, blah, 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 while there are only 500,000 elephants left. Right. Well, yeah, and that's another really, here's my other answer to that. If there's, 96% of the mammals on the planet are humans and their livestock, and 4% of the mammals left on the planet are wild. How many... what is the way in which we can even those numbers back out again? Where there's 50, let's say how do we get back to 50%, humans and their livestock and 50% wild animals? How do we do that? How do we do that? And if we are starting to do that, then we're going in the right direction. Ross Cobbin says, until we de-brainwash 7 to 8 billion people to believe that growing their own food is a better idea than going to work, earning a salary, and buying a bunch of crap, it's dead in the water. Yes. Indeed. Yeah, until people are aware that creative experiments less Bitcoin. Yeah. I mean... yes, less Bitcoin, but I think that Bitcoin is probably, smaller on the scale than other things. Bitcoin takes a lot of energy, but, that's about all it takes. Buying an electric car probably takes a lot. There's way more involved in making an electric car and keeping it going than there is buying some Bitcoin. Scott Andrews... ding, Bill Gates won't live the Amish lifestyle, I'm guessing. And this, actually, I wanted to bring this in. living in an Amish paradise, indeed. Let's all give it up one time. What the fuck is his name? I'm sorry. For Weird Al Yankovic. So, this reminds me, I want to find this tweet from, I wanted to find this tweet from, Peter Kalmus. Okay, so, here we go. Peter Kalmus says, not sure who needs to hear this, but billionaires aren't going to solve climate and ecological breakdown. And I was like, yeah, that's right. Billionaires are not going to solve it. Excuse me. Jeez, holes. Jeez, holes. Yeah, and I said especially because they'd have to stop 95% of their activities to be in the realm of helping. Until a billionaire is willing to give up 95% of their wealth, their power, cease all operations of their company, shutter their doors. Until billionaires are willing to do that, they don't have any ideas about how to do it. None. Anyways, let's read this from The Nation real quick. Bill Gates, climate warrior and super emitter. The billionaire's new book, a bid to be taken seriously as a climate campaigner, has attracted the usual worshipful coverage. When will the media realize it? With Gates, you have to follow the money. So, I'm assuming this is not going to be very nice. But let's get into it. During the pandemic, Bill Gates' personal fortune has increased by an impressive $20 billion during the pandemic. So, worldwide calamity, good for business, especially Bill Gates' business. But even these gains pale in comparison to his soaring political influence. As the news media has widely trumpeted his leadership on COVID-19, praising his charitable donations or extolling him as a visionary who predicted the outbreak. It's a highly questionable narrative, one that ignores widespread controversy over the way Gates made his fortune and how he chooses to spend it, but which nonetheless has delivered a windfall of political capital for our philanthropist in chief, which he is now spending down. I expect to spend much of my time in 2021 talking with leaders around the world about how both climate change and COVID-19, Gates notes in his new book, How to Avoid a Climate Disaster, which seems destined to be a bestseller. Even before the release of his book this week, Gates' move into climate change has made waves. An interview on 60 Minutes, op-eds in Time magazine and The Guardian, and a podcast with actor Rashida Jones. Given Gates' track record of success inserting himself into other policy debates, everything from U.S. education to global health, it seems likely he will continue to take up oxygen in the climate discourse going forward. If so, he proceeds from a precarious position, not just because of his thin credentials, untested solutions, and stunning financial conflicts of interest, but because his undemocratic assertion of power. No one appointed or elected him as the world's new climate czar. Comes at precisely the time when democratic institutions have become essential to solving climate change. In his book, Gates several times praises the young people and activists who have energized climate politics, even drawing parallels to successful protests against the Vietnam War and divestment campaigns against South African apartheid. Yet Gates doesn't seriously engage with these political movements and seems oblivious to ways that they've pushed the mainstream conversation on climate change beyond the technical question of how to reduce carbon emissions. Gates' narrow focus. To interrogate the political systems and economic models that, for example, channel climate change's greatest impacts towards the poor and people of color. Well, yeah, and if Gates were a billionaire during Vietnam War and during the South African apartheid protests, I'm sure on some levels he would have profited off both of those situations. Anthony Rogers Wright, director of environmental justice for the New York Lawyers for the Public Interest, notes that even Joe Biden, a centrist neoliberal president, understands that issues like equity and justice are central to climate change, as is evident in a recent executive order that mentions the term environmental justice 27 times. In Gates' 250-page book, the term is completely absent. Also interesting, these billionaires, the best they can do, some would say, would be to stop their foundations and pay their fair share of taxes. That's getting closer. That's not the best they can do, but that's better. Says Rogers Wright, noting how new tax revenues could help fund democratically devised solutions. If Gates really wants to be effective and in a way that lifts up equity, he should be really listening to people who are being impacted the most and scaling up their solutions, rather than coming in with a parachute and with an air of white saviorism that actually in some cases causes more harm than good. Christine Nobis, founder of the indigenous-led Great Plains Action Society, points to recent reports that Bill Gates has become the largest farmland owner in the United States, holding 242,000 acres, a larger area of land than Bahrain or Singapore or Barbados can claim. Nobis says this speaks to the manifest destiny mentality that has to be challenged in the political fight around climate change. Bill Gates is smart enough to understand. He's smart. He can do the math that no one single person needs that amount of land. That no one single person needs that amount of land, notes Nobis. He's basically participating in the never-ending cycle of colonization. Corporate colonization. In Gates's land holdings, Nobis notes, are intrinsically linked to climate change because agriculture is a leading source of carbon emissions. Nobis and Rogers Wright both propose that Gates give away his farmland as an act of reparations and to ensure that the acres are put into sustainable food production. Ding, ding, ding. Also, give away your money. Give away your wealth, Bill Gates. Whatever your wealth is, give away 90% of it. And don't give it to a foundation or, like give it straight to the people, or give it straight to organizations that help people transition into living, off the land or closer to the land, or help sustain people while they're transitioning. But, the problem is that Gates and everyone else lives, and even, and Joe Biden and everyone, the government, the entire society lives in a paradigm, in a mental paradigm in which, things have to continue working the way they work. If you would suggest or propose the fact that like our entire system is, faulty, and so everything needs to go, everything must go, and we must transition to an entirely different way of living, that's a little too much for people to understand or even take in or take on as a reality. The system that gives us billionaires and corporations and Bill Gates's and Jeff Bezos's, and Elon Musk's, all of that has to be wiped away. Gates didn't respond to several interview requests, but in his book, he actually does briefly acknowledge that the way his own wealth impacts climate change, and even concedes that he needs to make changes. Okay, well, that's good. Now that Gates is going to give up, not that Gates is going to give up his vast farmland, nor is he going to sell any of his houses, including, getting a little slow on Rockfin, guys, and I apologize, but it should be going back again. Including a 66,000 square foot mansion outside Seattle. He's also not going to get rid of his private jet, a Bombardier BD 700 Global Express that consumes 486 gallons of fuel each hour. But Bill Gates writes he's going to start buying sustainable jet fuel. Yeah. Gates' main credential related to climate change is as an investor. In 2015, he started a multi-billion-dollar venture capital fund called Breakthrough Energy, recruiting a who's who of global super rich to join the fund. Oh boy. Jeff Bezos, Richard Branson, Michael Bloomberg, Jack Ma, Mukesh Ambani, and others. Wowzers. This billionaire club boasts that its investments in new technologies can lead the world to zero emissions, but the fund's portfolio includes companies whose impact on fighting climate change is largely hypothetical, and in some cases, highly dubious, like lab-cultured breast milk substitute and a hydrogen-powered airplane, of course, which is totally green, right? Because there's no energy involved in making that hydrogen or the airplane. In some ways, Gates's book could be read as a long-winded advertisement for his investments. There we go. because he devotes many pages promoting the need for new technologies to fight climate change. Techno-utopianism, green new dealism, green new utopianism, green new billionaires. At one point, Gates even calls on the U.S. government to become a co-investor in advanced nuclear energy companies like the one he founded, TerraPower. Yeah, which has yet to put any energy into the power grid. Late last year, the U.S. Department of Energy awarded TerraPower an $80 million contract to demonstrate its reactor design and has a 7-year plan to potentially give hundreds of millions more. So this U.S. is funding his company. Awesome. A guy who's worth billions of dollars needs to get $80 million from the U.S. Department of Energy. Okay. While Gates' personal $2 billion investment into new climate technology puts him in a position to potentially profit from many of the solutions he offers in his book, it would be a mistake to imagine the fourth richest man on earth as being motivated by money. Rather, the primary function of Gates' investment seems political, giving him a basis to claim relevancy in the climate policy debate. He's putting his money where his mouth is, which means we should listen to him. In many respects, that's the entire modus operandi or sleight of hand of the Gates Foundation. Man, this article is full of some very uncomfortable truths, isn't it? Aren't it? Incorporated as a charity, the foundation is probably better understood as a political organization, one that uses its outsized resources to push public policy in line with Bill and Melinda Gates' view of how the world should work, which is also sometimes in line with the Gates Foundation's financial investments. Though, of course, that's not how Bill Gates sees it. I think more like an engineer than a political scientist, and I don't have a solution to the politics of climate change, Gates writes early in the book. With no irony, the author goes on to write 2 chapters describing policies that governments can adopt to fight climate change, like supporting and subsidizing the kinds of companies in which he is invested. Let's look at this. The Gates Foundation non-divestment divestment. A snapshot of Gates Foundation's fossil fuel investments. In Impex Corp, $84 million. Dominion Energy, $19 million. Occidental Petroleum, $13 million. Japan Petroleum, $10 million. Wow. Tokyo Gas, $5 million. Energy Transfer, $5 million. Oh, isn't that Energy Transfer? Isn't that Keystone Pipeline? Kazmunaygas National Kazmunaygas, I guess that's a gas company, $4 million. Chevron, $3 million. ExxonMobil, $3 million. So he's a liar. To bolster his bona fides on climate change, Bill Gates writes in his new book that he and his charity divested from fossil fuels in 2019. But the Gates Foundation's tax records seem to directly contradict this statement, showing its endowment has millions of dollars invested in fossil fuels and billions more in fossil fuel dependent industries. Lying ass liar. Bill Gates is a liar. So why should we believe anything that he has to say about climate change? If you wonder why people feel like Bill Gates is an evil person, it's because he's a lying piece of shit. Golly, you wonder why people don't believe the media or believe the people that are supposedly the smartest people in the room? Is it because they're liars? Anyways, they go on to say how he's lying. Gates has long refused to release tax records or financial information, making it impossible to verify if he is really divested. And if he still owns a private jet, I mean, I don't know. I divested all my fossil fuel things, but I still, operate my own private jet. But I'm going to buy some sustainable jet fuel pretty soon. You know? It's good stuff. It's probably, it's my own company. I make sustainable jet fuel. I'm Bill Gates. Carbon footprint. According to the 2019 academic study looking at extreme carbon emissions from the jet-setting elite, Bill Gates' extensive travel by private jet likely makes him one of the world's top carbon contributors, a veritable super emitter. In the list of 10 celebrities investigated, including Jennifer Lopez, Paris Hilton, and Oprah Winfrey, Gates was the source of the most emissions. But he's going to tell you how we need to fight climate change. I'm going to tell you how you can fight climate change. I'm going to write a book. And my book is going to tell you, Bill Gates, to just give away all your money and go away. That's how you can fight climate change. The best thing you can do, Bill Gates, fold it up, shut it down, and definitely don't write any more books. You got plenty. You got plenty to live the rest of your life. A very wealthy person many times over. Just stop. Just stop it. Just stop it. The study only looked at Gates' jet travel, but might have also considered Gates' emissions from his farmland, which includes large tracts of corn and soybeans, which typically goes to feed animals, often on factory farms. A particularly carbon-intensive model of agriculture. Nice. Gates' farms have also attracted public criticism over the years for their environmental impacts. A citizens group in Florida in 2016 penned an op-ed about Gates' impacts on waterways, saying his farms were compromising the health and welfare of North Florida. John Quarterman, a farmer and riverkeeper of the Suwannee River, which runs through Georgia and Florida, also raises sharp questions about Gates' environmental impacts. When Gates acquires land, Quarterman notes he seems to take a business-as-usual approach, keeping the existing and unsustainable agricultural production model little changed from previous owners. He himself has plenty of resources where he could have tried to fix the problems. Instead, all he did was tinker around the edges, Quarterman said. That's my indictment. But, by all means, let's sell some more books. I wrote a book about it. Want to read it? Here it go. Interglacial Optimist says, I trust Bill Gates. Yeah, I guess yes, Bill Gates needs to learn how to use Skype, yes. Max Sarge, most roofing materials, fossil fuel. Most everything is fossil fuel. Like everything is fossil fuel based. Everything. I mean, the super quick cynical take is, climate change is a really popular issue, and Bill Gates is just cashing in on the words climate change. I'm Bill Gates. I can write a book about climate change, and everybody's going to be like, what? Bill Gates is writing about climate change? Cool. Let's read it. Interglacial Optimist says, the good news is Bill Gates could convert 250,000 acres of monocrop farmland back into diverse habitats, which would be about 1 million times bigger than what I'm doing on my half acre. Yeah, well, he could do that if he's going to do that. Like, that would be a wonderful thing. If Bill Gates said, I have all this farmland, 250,000 acres, and I'm going to, on half the farmland, I'm going to do permaculture, and I'm going to let local people run my permaculture forest. And on the other half, I'm going to let it rewild completely. Then I would be like, all right, now you're on to something, Bill Gates. But he's not going to do that. Did Kim Kardashian write a book on climate change? That's a good joke. But even a better joke if she actually did. All right, guys. I have run out of time. I think I'm all done for today. I got a couple of super rays, some tips here on Rockfin. I got a tip from Raza. I got a tip from Brent McKinney. Thank you. Anyways, guys, that does it for me today. I am not going to do a neo-realism broadcast. I don't think. Did a pretty long show today. But I will be back tomorrow at the regular time of 11 a.m. Pacific time. And thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. Until next time, peace.